now that we've got the tuning keys up in pretty good shape, I also, by the way, went and cleaned them all with, I had a little brass brush, and I brushed all the metal everywhere to clean up all the tarnish and everything, so they look pretty nice now. And anyway, I've got those cleaned up, so now that that's out of the way, we got to get down to the serious part of the business here. And I can tell that the back is loose. You can see here that the back's coming loose, and the back is in two pieces already. So I'm just going to start around the back with this with the tool that I use to remove bridges. Just take my time, go really slow, and just see what happens. Sometimes it just pops the glue real easy. I don't want to crack anything. We're just going to have to take our time with this and work on it. I'm anxious to get it open so I can show you the rattlesnake rattle that I can hear rattling around in there.
Fabric all torn, but still cradled inside was one old precious thing. It was Grandpa's old fiddle. Oh, how sweetly it rings.
Yeah, I can definitely see the rattlesnake rattle in there now. Matter of fact, it'll probably fall out of here now. There's quite a bit of room here. There it is. And there's the sound post that was in there. The old timers, and it's still a common method, is to use a string to set the sound post. I do it differently. There's your rattlesnake rattle. It's not uncommon at all. I see those all the time inside the old fiddles. The thought is that it's an old wives' tale. They just, you know, you put this in there, and of course, because this thing is a rattling thing, it causes the top to vibrate better. You know, it's just hocus pocus. But it's a very old tradition, and I'll throw this into the parts box with the rest of the parts that are going back to the family. And this will go into the parts box too, because it's not a quality sound post. We'll put a quality sound post in there. Thought I'd point out here on video that this end here is missing, so we will need to make a new end for that. The rest of this is in good shape. The back side is all in good shape. But these often get knocked off because the grain of the wood is in this soft wood goes right through there. I've also noticed while I'm doing this on this side, if I lift, I don't know if you can see this, if it's a pretty small crack, but you'll see this crack open up along down through here where the sides are loose. You can maybe see that a little bit. So we'll have to fix these blocks in here too, or sometimes there's no blocks, they just bring the sides together, so we'll have to see how they're put that one together and fix that. That old fiddle, and now I play it with love. Grandpa's old fiddle played sweet melodies. He played it from his heart for my grandma and me. Wrinkled old hands, he held it with love, and I can still hear it playing up in heaven above. The old fiddle is ringing up in heaven above. And I'm going to take this very sharp, brand new X-Acto blade knife, and I'm going to lightly score this line through the finish, and that will help it break right there without creating a big mess.
Tomorrow, what do I do with all the pain?
Okay, you can't really see it, but I'll point it over here. I've got my torch blowing with a very small flame, and what I'll do is I'll just warm up the tip of the blade here. Not trying to get it red hot or anything, just warm it up. And you can see it turns blue pretty fast because it doesn't take much to warm it up. And then I'm going to try to slide it right into that joint again.
Swelling well outside its banks, I am longing like the water for a resting
There it goes. It just came all at once. There it came all at once. You can see there's no damage whatsoever. Just slid right under there. You just finally melt the glue and come right out of there. Here's the label inside. You can probably see. It says copy of Antonio Stradivari, made in Czechoslovakia.
swelling well outside its base.
This is kind of unique. There's some kind of a stamp there was a stamp in the wood right there. You can see it. I'll be darned. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. I don't know if we'll be able to make that out or not. I doubt it. But that's good. Now we've got her apart without any damage at all. Give you an idea what the inside looks like. You can see that this tone bar was actually carved into the top. Very often they're added on, which would be the more standard way of doing it. You can see when they carved the top, they got a little deep right here. They were carving in, took a nice big chunk out right there. The top is very rough carved. It's not been scraped or anything, so you can still see all the carving marks in here. The peg has chipped out a piece of the tail block here. Actually, that's weird. The hole didn't go all the way. You can see now that the hole used to not go all the way through, and then the peg went through and pushed this piece of wood out. So I think what I'll do is I'll glue that back in place and then drill and ream that hole correctly before I lose that little chunk of wood. Not that it's that critical, but might as well do that. So that's what I did. I went ahead and glued that little chip back down. Then I took my X-Acto knife and cut out that hole a little bit there. So it's just rough cut at the moment. We've got lots of little issues. The corners are loose just about everywhere, which is not unusual for something this old. This base bar is really heavy and clunky in my opinion. It's even though it's carved into the top, it's they left it kind of wide and not so much not too tall this way. It's about right this way, but it's kind of thick and heavy. Probably wouldn't hurt if that was carved down just a little bit to make it sound a little better. Though that's not really my charge, so I probably won't do that. Trying to keep it looking and sounding pretty much like it was when it was played by Grandpa. So I'm going to tackle some of the smaller parts of the project first. Like the lining is coming loose here, and I'm taking the back edge of the X-Acto knife, which works really good as a scraper, to scrape the old glue off and to clean the joint. I'm scraping it on both sides, scraping the lining, and I'm scraping the side piece too, to get rid of any dirt and grime that's in there. I know that, you know, there's a lot of purists out there that will argue with me until the death, and I don't blame you. I respect your opinion, but I'm not crazy sold on hide glue. I know Stradivari used it, and you know, you might just say, well, if it was good enough for him, it's good enough for everybody else. I think that's true. I do think there's some truth to that. But there's another way of looking at it, and this is the way I choose to look at it. In my opinion, Stradivari and Amati and these different, you know, great old builders used the very best that they could get their hands on. They used the best wood, they used the best materials, you know, glue, varnish, everything that they could get, they used the best that they could find. And my honest opinion is, and I believe this, and I don't think anybody's going to change my opinion, and that is, if they were alive today, they would be using modern wood glues. And that's my opinion. I believe it to the bottom of my soul, because I believe they're superior to the hide glues in quite a few ways. Now, the hide glue has an advantage. You can take it apart much easier. But, you know, I'm of the opinion that if you do it right, you shouldn't be taking it apart. So that's my opinion. You know, I build it right and then you don't take it apart. And so, and they did definitely build them right, you know. And hide, and even this kind of glue can be taken apart. If you heat up your knife, it will cut this just about as fast as it'll cut hide glue. Not quite as fast, but it will cut it. I do it all the time. I've taken fretboards off that I have personally glued with this on, and normally I glue fretboards on with hide glue, don't get me wrong, because sometimes you want to take them off. But I generally glue them on with this, and I can take them off just about as easy with this as I can with hide glue. So I don't see a huge advantage to the hide glue, and I do think this has a superior hold. So that's what I'm using, and so I apologize to all the traditionalists out there, because I do know that you feel strongly about your hide glue, and that's okay. I respect your opinion, truly I do. But I hope you'll respect mine also. And that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use wood glue to glue these back, and we're going to clamp it, and then we'll just let that set for a while. The way I generally do this type of thing is I take the glue, I put it on a brush, and sometimes I'll even use a wedge to open up the crack a little bit so I can get in there with the glue and get it on both surfaces real good. I might be able to get a spring clamp and try that and see if that'll stay on there. I'll give that a shot. Okay, I've done a dry fit, and I can wrap this piece of soft leather around this corner, clamp it with this, and it seems to hold fine. So we're going to go with that. I'm going to get glue all down in there. I've already cleaned the joint. Just trying to come up with a little more clue as to why this cracked and shattered the varnish. I now see, and hold it in a certain light, and I think you can see it there too, there's two big long scratches that went along here and hit that right there. So something traumatic nailed it pretty good. I've got the sides sitting away drying in the glue. This glue mess that they put on here is really bad. It's got to come off. You know, I hate to refinish the whole instrument, but I don't think there's any way to get this glue off. I don't think this kind of glue is just going to peel off of here. I'm going to glue it, find a way to hold this, clamp it real good. I'll be back as soon as I figure out my clamping. My guess is that many of you are wondering, what am I going to do with this contraption? Well, believe it or not, this is my clamp. I've done this before. It works really good. There's some advantages to using this wedge style clamp like this. You can take and force this up, and that's forcing these sides together. Now, I had to make it special for this particular fiddle. What I decided, I've done this many times and I've never saved it. This time I decided I'm going to make this where I can reuse it. So this side I screwed and glued down. So it's permanent. This side I just screwed, and so I can move it, you know, this way or that way the next time I have a different fiddle, you know. And I might also point out that this is how I glue guitar tops together, except on a bigger scale. And what I do is the only difference I do, because guitar tops are perfectly flat, what I do is I set this up to the exact angle like it should be. But what I do is I put about a half-inch thick board right down the seam of the guitar, underneath the guitar, so that basically the guitar is laying there on top of that half-inch thick little strip of wood. And then I put these real close together, you know, right up to the edges of the guitar. And then when you put the glue on the edges of your guitar and you pull that strip of wood out and you push it down, it forces it perfectly into this. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But anyway, that's how I glue guitar tops together. Now, another advantage of this is because this board's really flat, I can just lay this this violin down on this and get it flat. And I think I can make this joint work out really good too, see? So, and it actually forces in there. You can feel it. There's definitely pressure going on. Right there is perfect. Like, that would be real good. I got enough pressure on it. There's glue. I can get glue down in there. And the other thing you can do is you can set a little weight on this too. Just a little bit of weight right here to help hold it down and out. I've got the joint cleaned out real good. I think we're in pretty good shape. So, no time like the present. I got some clamps that I think will reach in here and clamp this down, and so that's what I'm going to go get, and where I can put a little pressure on this right here and hold this down because it keeps coming up. Okay, I've got a clamp on there holding it down. The clamp is pretty much just on this side of the back. So, because that's the side that keeps popping up, and I've got it forced up in there about as far as it'll go. It feels pretty good everywhere. I wouldn't call it perfect, but it feels pretty good. It's hard to tell with all that glue on there whether or not it's perfect or not. That glue is pretty thick. That might have been a good reason to take the glue off. But I think we're going to let it sit like that for a few hours and see what we've got. Well, I took the back out of the clamp that I had made, and it turned out pretty darn good. It's just that you can feel it just the slightest amount at the joint there where it's not perfectly aligned, but it's so minimal that I don't think we have to worry about it too much. Since we're going to be scraping the finish off of here, we're going to, you know, level all that out and smooth it all out, and we'll put her back to as close to original as we can. I've already just touched this glue to see how hard it would be to scrape it, and it's like your worst nightmare. It is really hard stuff. I guess it's some sort of an epoxy resin type glue. It's really hard. I mean, like really hard. It doesn't even seem to be phased by the scraping.
So it's going to take a lot of scraping on that to get the glue off. The regular finish just comes right off, but that glue is something else. Wow. I'll figure it out. Well, you can see that I've got the finish off of the back plate for the fiddle, and it feels nice. I just used some rough sandpaper on it to kind of even it out. There's still a few little scarring things I can feel, and we'll go to a 220, then to a 400, and maybe even a 600 for the final. I don't sand the inside ever because the inside needs to remain open to breathe. The outside I'm not too worried about sanding it. I know the purists wouldn't even sand the outside. They would only use scrapers. But realistically, when you think about the common sense of that, your varnish is going to fill the pores. So I'm not too worried about if there's a little bit of sawdust that gets in the pores. So, it's going to fill it anyway, and in my opinion, maybe the sawdust will keep the varnish from going in so deep. So, I'd say there's two ways to look at that. But anyway, I do sand the outside, I just never sand the inside. And we're looking pretty good on it, but it's going to take some more work.
Now that we've got the back up in pretty good shape, I probably will put cleats in here, by the way. I won't do them right now, but the back joint looks pretty good, but I don't know if I want to trust it or not. I think that it's holding good because I've sanded and scraped and did all that, and it didn't come apart, so I think it'll be fine. But just for safety's sake, I'll probably put a couple of cleats in here just to be sure. And now we can move on to this top. Of course, the top is pretty bad shape. It's got this big crack in it that you can see there, and I think that's what we'll fix first. We'll work on trying to get it together and get that crack fixed up, and then after we get that fixed up, then we'll probably repair this little corner here, and then after that we'll scrape and sand everything down and get it just real nice. I believe that'll hold. It's got a lot of pressure this way already. I don't think I need much of a clamp there. We'll just let that sit up for a while. We'll put some cleats on the inside to ensure that it's a good fix. The fiddle's been sitting for a couple of days, and the customer says he's in no hurry on it at all, so that's kind of good because I am kind of behind on a lot of stuff right now. So I'm taking a little more time on this one than I would ordinarily take just because I got a lot to do. But that feels pretty good. That I think we got it without feeling any place there. I think it's glued up real nice. Now we're going to have to strip this off. Incidentally, the customer saw the part 1 of the video about the tuning keys and things, and he's asked that we go ahead and put the regular pegs in. He didn't realize that this wasn't the standard. Just give you another look at that real quick here, as you can see how bad that is. It's pretty bad, but we will have to repair that damage and re-round the holes and then taper them again. But that's for down the road. Right now we're just going to strip the finish off of this thing and clean up the top here.
Again, we've got that glue on the surface, and whatever that glue is, it is just like concrete. So I just have to work at it to get it off of there. Wow, it's really hard glue. The finish itself comes off pretty easy, but that glue is something else.
Stranger traveling through this world of woe. There is no sadness, no toil, no danger, and that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my mother. She said she'd meet me when I come. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. See my mother. She said she'd meet me when I come. I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home.
Now would be the perfect time to repair this little corner right here. The rest of the corners look fine, but this one's pretty jagged. I think you can see it there. And what I will do is I will take an X-Acto knife and cut that off smooth. And what I'll try to do is cut it off exactly in line with one of the grain lines. Cut it off real smooth like that, real straight. And now I'll find a piece of spruce that will match that, and we'll glue it right back in place. Alright, I cut a piece of spruce, and then I just freehand drew in a little area there that would be bigger than what we need. And I'll cut that out a little bigger than that yet. For the sake of time, I'm going to use super glue, CA glue, to glue this on here. I'd be curious if anybody has a tip for keeping these glues from stopping up. Seems like every time you want to use it, you get into a critical spot and it'll stop up on you every time.
Back to the place where long before salvation there I found. My sins were all forgiven there, the Spirit sweetly flowed. I could surely feel God's presence in that church at Hickory Grove.
Oh, that church at Hickory Grove. Oh, that church back years ago.
years ago.
On my knees, heard my cry for his name. I found God in that church at Hickory Grove.
There was preaching, praying, singing there on the old campground. That's where I met the Savior and felt the glory roll. I was mighty close to heaven in that church at Hickory Grove.
Oh, that church, Hickory Grove. Oh, that church back years ago.
See, I've just about got it stripped. I've spent about 30 minutes on the sides now, and I just thought I'd show you a little bit of the technique I'm using. I just take a scraper, which in this case is just a rounded edge X-Acto blade, and I just take and use my fingers kind of like as a depth gauge and rub them on there, and then I can hold it. And you can do a real nice job if you just take your time. You can see there how quickly it comes off, and you have to be very, very careful that you don't get a lot of chatter and stuff. And anyway, I just got this little bit more to go on the sides, and then we'll do the neck and peg head. And we got to find a way to get underneath this fretboard here. I don't want to take the fretboard off. It's very hard to get off. I've got just a little bit more to go. I've got the scroll cleaned off pretty well. I've got just this one little flute to go, and a round up in here, and a little bit on the top up in here. And it's very difficult to do. I rounded off the blade of an X-Acto knife, and that's how I'm getting into the sharp areas. I also have this little tiny chisel scraper that I made, and of course the regular X-Acto knife, and I just use a combination to get in there and clean it all out, and it's really a tough job. Now what I'm having difficulties with is whether I'm gonna, what I haven't told you yet, I guess I should back up and say that the family has decided they want the regular tuners put back in this, which is what it came with originally. Well, I'm going to try to figure out whether I should patch these holes, the bad holes and the little holes where the screws were, or actually inlay a piece of wood in this whole area where I just have basically one seam here and one seam here, and then re-drill all the holes. So, and I'd have to do it on both sides. And I'm not really sure which way I'm going to go yet. I'm going to think on it some more and make a decision. Well, I've discovered one little minor thing. If you notice, this F hole has got the little point on it. This one doesn't. It's blunted off. It's been broken. So I'm going to try to fix that little point since we're this far into it. I've also made a decision about this here, and I always am a believer of do the easy thing first. And because generally after you do the easy thing, you can do the hard thing if the easy thing doesn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out a little bit here and just put a patch of wood, try to get it the full thickness of this, and the same way here, and then the same way here, and the same way here, and just basically cover these holes. If that doesn't look good or work when we get done, well then we'll cut out this whole section and replace the whole section. So I think we'll do this simple thing first, or the easiest thing first, and then we'll go on to the hard thing if we need to. Sorry for all the noise in here. We've got all the air on and fans on and things trying to cool this place off. But you can see how I have scribed out a hole there and shaped a hole. That included the little screw holes too. There was 4 screw holes there, or 3 screw holes, I can't remember now. But anyway, we've got it, and we tapered it in like that. That gives you more surface area to glue to. Then I traced it. I just put a piece of paper over there and did a rubbing with lead,
and I traced it, and I cut out that piece of paper, and I glued it onto this piece of wood. I've already thicknessed this wood to the thickest part of this. This tapers actually. It's thinner at the top and it gets thicker as it goes down in there. But anyway, I've got this cut to the thickest part, and now we'll just cut this out, and then we'll start shaping it to fit this hole and see how good we can do. Well, the first attempt at this failed miserably. I just threw it away. I found out that I needed to cut these angles steeper. I had them pretty flat, and once I cut them steeper, it was easier to cut a block that fit close. I set my angle grinder to an angle that kind of matched the angle I put on this, and so it fit closer right away. But then I took pencil lead and put it on the inside of here, and then wiggled this around, and then I would remove the pencil lead right on this piece until I got a pretty good glove fit. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. And you can see on the inside it even fits up pretty good in there. It's actually proud on the inside as well as on the outside. Once I get that all planed down flush, it's and stained and everything, I think it's going to be, you know, a good repair and not that noticeable. Okay, after the fit, the thing I'm next most concerned with is good glue coverage. I've got excellent glue coverage. I put it on both pieces and squeezed them together. They fit really good. And then the third thing I'm concerned with is good clamping. We'll put a good C-clamp on here and put some pressure on it and let it set for at least, you know, 4 or 5 hours anyway. Even though I think they say an hour, it's kind of set up. But we'll give it 4 or 5 hours before we even take the clamp off. And then after we plane it down, it's going to be pretty good. Okay, it's been sitting a couple of hours, and you can see the inside and the outside there. It's a little proud on all of it. So I'm basically just going to take my little plane and very carefully plane it without trying to hit the rest of the peg box. Well, as you can see, I have the plug in there, and it's perfectly smooth. You cannot feel it at all with your finger. And on the inside, it's pretty smooth too. On the inside, we can dye that a little bit, make it look real good. On the outside here, you're going to be able to tell it, but once the peg gets in there, that's going to take up a lot of it, and it's going to look pretty good. So the good news is it's a perfect thickness of the old peg box, and we'll be able to cut a new hole and make it work good. The bad news is I've got to do 3 more of them, 2 on this side and 1 more on this side. And we'll make these a little bit smaller because the damage area is a little bit smaller. Here's the current state of the union. You can see that the peg head has been patched up. I don't have the new holes drilled yet. I have to re-drill the holes. The 2 holes that are there are for the E and the A pegs, so the G and the D pegs have to be remade. And anyway, we'll get to that eventually and hopefully make that all look real good. The rest of the thing is really starting to pop. It's starting to work out. I fixed that little tiny point there. I fixed this point here. And the rest of it's in pretty good shape. The back that we re-glued, this joint doesn't excite me. I don't think this joint is as tight as it should be. I think it was probably either made that way or it warped that way over the years. So there's a little tiny bit of a crack here still. It's solid. The glue is holding and everything. But just to be on the safe side, I don't like to use cleats, but in this particular one, I've already pre-made cleats, and we will be installing those down this joint just to make sure that it doesn't come loose in the future. And we'll probably install them at least up to the halfway point, well, probably a little further. We'll probably install them up to about this for 2/3 of the way. This end was still glued. This end has never come loose. But I don't know. What the heck? We may as well just go that far anyway, since I've got that many pre-made. And we'll put those in there just for good insurance, and then we'll start putting this baby back together. Just thought I would show you that I do have all the cleats in there. I decided to go the full length. I had made these cleats 90 thousandths thick, and I thought that was going to be good. They were 90 by 3/4 by about 3/8 roughly. And I spaced them every 3/4 of an inch.
I decided that that was still too thick. You don't want to add mass to this. You're just wanting to add strength. And you know, the idea also, by the way, in case you've never done this before, is your grain in these cleats goes across the grain so that it adds strength. It won't split. If you ran it lengthways, well, then it has the tendency to split also. This way it can't split. So now I'm taking a hand plane, my finger plane, and I'm planing down every one of them, and I'm planing them down to roughly, and I'm just guessing now, but I'm going to say I'm taking about half the thickness off. So, you know, roughly 40 to 50 thousandths thick is what we'll be left with, which is plenty of material. But I just didn't like the thickness of these. I should have made them thinner, but hadn't done them in a long time and really didn't remember how thick I usually make them. So anyway, it just takes a few minutes to knock them down with the finger plane, and then I'll re-bevel all the edges too to make them look nice. Just thought I'd show you, I sharpened this chisel up razor sharp, and you can see how much easier it cuts now. It just curls it right off of there. It's not hard at all, hardly any pressure, so it won't take very long now to cut them all this way. I'll just go down one side, cut all the ends off, go down the other side, cut the ends off, and then I'll bevel the sides too. Thought I'd give you a real close-up of what they look like. I cleaned up all the glue squeeze out around each one of them, and each one of them is beveled down real tiny. They're real thin. I would say the whole thing together, if you added all of them up together, you'd probably be talking about 1 gram, if that. And so anyway, it's you know, that's the best way I could think of to strengthen that back, and I don't believe it'll come apart now. Pretty much, we try to shoot for a 50-year repair on these kinds of things so that you don't have to deal with it for 50 years, and I'm pretty sure that'll hold for 50 years. Just wanted to show you that I also cleated the inside of the top, which had broken all the way from here down through here. That glue joint was really good and really tight. I don't think I needed to cleat it, but you know, we're shooting for that 50-year repair, so I don't think it'll ever come apart now, and I think it's really solid. We're just about ready to clean up the sides and the back a little bit and put these babies back together. I've pretty much got this thing ready to go back together, but what I do a lot of times is I have this sandpaper on a flat wooden block, and I'll go across and just make sure everything's good and flat, you know, just work it like that, and it gets everything in the same plane, and make sure that all the little junk is knocked off, and it gets it good and flat so that the back goes on back real smooth and easy and makes a nice joint. Just thought I'd show you that as an extra little tip.